Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today I've got Granger from BizSmart Gloucestershire, so welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
so
much, Errol.
It makes a change for you, I guess, being on the other side, having been on your podcast and you've been an avid podcaster, so good to get you on and swap seats.
Yes, it's going to be interesting. It's my first time on the other side. So
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit, Granger, because, you're obviously coach, you help a lot of people through business and getting to where they need to get to. But how did you start your journey to become a coach? Was it a thing that you thought, I love to work with people when I was at school? Or was it just an evolution of loads of different things and then eventually you ended up finding your role?
Definitely an evolution, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, when I think about when I started at school, I was on the stage. I was in school productions. I was lead sometimes in the background and doing things. So
famous role. What was your most famous role?
I was Joseph in His Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Nice. You go. Not bad. Good gig, that one. Yeah, nice.
So I started doing things like that, and then I loved maths and engineering. So I naturally went through engineering, did engineering at university. Finished with a 2-1 in mechanical engineering, and just I love physical things and thinking about how they work and how they get together. So first job out of university, eventually I came into a recession, so I know what it's like to not find a job. I had a very good engineering degree and couldn't find a job for over 12 months nearly. I think it was 11 months.
Tough.
And my dad always thought it was funny because I was going to have a party when I got to 50 applications, and I got a job on my 48th application. I worked for a little local company, but they had big things. So we did the Triumph motorcycle engines. So just putting that into production. So I was learning machining and die casting for amazing big products like that. And then I moved divisions and got into beer barrels and dispense equipment for bars.
Okay.
And
quite diverse.
And my claim to fame is the Guinness beer tap.
Is it really?
So yes. So I worked. There was the engineer and myself. The two of us. We designed the working for Guinness back in 1994, 93. Wow. And what they had was they wanted to move from hand pull to gas dispense, so they could put Guinness anywhere in the world. And we designed the internal and external workings of the gas pump and the tap, so anybody could make the perfect pint of Guinness anywhere in the world. So that's my claim to fame.
That's your claim to fame. So drinking and driving.
and actually, that tap and the design you see on all bars now, rather than just dispensing.
Yeah, because it's an interesting one. Because obviously the emergence of non-alcohol and 0.0. I mean, if you go to a pub now, I'm yet to see Guinness on 0.0 tap.
Yeah, that's
yet.
True. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that one because I do 0.0. I don't do the alcohol, and for me, it's like just to see the evolution in that industry has been quite something.
Oh yeah, I mean, you and I also network, and you go to places now, and there are 4 or 5 zero alcohol beverages where 10 years ago, you probably struggled to find one. If
it was Caliber, wasn't it?
And if it tasted anything.
It was Caliber, I think, or Caliber, as we used to joke. But so you obviously, you weren't born in the UK, were you? You were born in a very different place.
I was indeed, yeah. I was born in Nigeria. Yeah, I lived there till I was about 8 years old. My parents lived out there for 11 years. I lived out there for the first 8 years of my life. Yeah.
So with that, obviously, how has that shaped your sort of like worldview then? Because I mean, obviously, a lot of people grow up in the same place to a certain age, and then they go and travel the world. You almost began that journey with your parents from an early age.
Yes, but it was just my place I lived. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did lots of touring when I was little. I remember those bits and pieces. But I've also moved around. We came back to Cambridgeshire when we moved back here, then Northamptonshire, then to Preston for university, and then back home, my first job, and then moving to across country to Worcestershire, and hence why I'm in this sort of area now. I've always moved around, and it's quite an easy thing to do. I've never really thought of it any other way.
But that's what I'm saying. So in your DNA, you're just traveling, just moving around. Whereas some people are like pop roots down and they never move, for however long. So when you're engineering, you've got your job, you've done the whole Guinness tap sort of stuff. When were the seeds of sort of like doing what you're doing now creeping in?
So that really came next. So as part of the Guinness beer tap, I had to do this idea of flow. So manufacturing, instead of in batches, you make one at a time. Very successful and massively improved productivity and things that we did. And I got a job to relay out a factory that made beer barrels. And again, we went from batch, so you make 100 in the stamping machine and 100 in the welding machine and 100 through the pickling machine. And we went to flow, we put conveyor belts in, and we moved the product one at a time through the factory. And within 3 weeks of going live, though I had lots of fun trying to make it go live, I can tell you, but anyway, total long story. Yeah. But we were doing 3 times as many beer barrels as we ever made. Oh, wow. So I started going, there's something about this. So I moved jobs. I was now moved into the automotive industry, and they're very much into lean as the expression. Yeah. And in there, I got involved with the lean team, and we made changes in the factory, and I really enjoyed it and really loved working with people rather than just things. Yeah. And I spotted a job. And that job was to go and work for a company called Industry Forum, and you'd get trained by some Japanese master engineers, and then you would then be a consultant traveling the country. Wow. And that's what I did. And there are probably 2 moments in my life that have massively stretched me. Yes, I've got 4 kids and been married and divorced, and I've moved around. Those are all things that change in life. But massive stretching for me is going outside of your knowledge zone, your comfort zone, and really learning something. And the first one was with the Japanese, and that really stretched me, and it was hard, really, really hard, because they said, we've got 18 months to make you the best person that we've done in 40 years. Wow. And they really pushed our learning and capability and thinking, and that so radically changed me, because it also taught me how amazing people are, because they would always say to me, Granger-san, is this your idea, or is this their idea? And I'd, when we're in companies helping and learning and coaching, and I used to go, sorry, Mick-san, it's my idea. And he would say, no good, go back, find new idea, find their idea. And it was those things that really resonated with me, that actually ideas come from the people in the process. Ideas come from those people that are really doing it and trialing it, not the managers that support them, not the coaches that are coming in. It needs to come from the individual. And I really learned that. And that was a really inspiring time for me.
I think for me, exactly. I mean, part of the advantages I have with running a marketing agency is I've done most of the jobs that are in the company now. Yeah. So when what do we do? How do we evolve, or whatever base? I have a bit of an idea, but I think there are certain other things where you've got no steering on it. You're not boots on the ground. You don't know. I don't code. I understand how coding works. I've got a software company, whatever, but I don't code. I'll go to the engineer and go, how does this work? That can help solve problems, because you come at it a completely different way. Because through your ignorance of not understanding how code works, so, well, can't you do this? And you describe something in principle makes sense, and then they go, oh yeah, you could do that, which is great. But for me, understanding how the actual business works and your idea of how it's going to affect the flow of what they're trying to achieve and do, I mean, that's invaluable. And I think you're right. I think that's quite a good one in terms of the team know more, and the team know more about the client as well than even you do. You'll probably speak to the client after you've won the client, maybe either when they're looking to pivot or go in a different direction, or there's an issue normally. But it's almost like pick the phone up to the team, go, what's really going on? Because they're the ones on the ground, and that's what I always do. If there's a problem, I'm not, right, here's the solution, let's go and implement it. It's like, well, what's really going on? Because there's 2 sides to every story, and the truth is somewhere in between.
Yes, very, very true, very true. Yes. So, I really learned exactly those type of thinking through the Japanese. And I traveled the country. I was a consultant for 13, 14 years, helping UK and European country businesses improve, working on the shop floor. Loved working with people. And that's where I found my real coaching. That's where I found the love of it, and that structure of it, and what we do. In that time, kids came along, so I then joined a corporate, big big printing company, took over departments, turned around failing sites, turned around failing departments, took over a software team, wow. Took over project management. There's lots of things I did in that business because I was very good at solving things.
Yeah.
And not just because I'm good at solving because I can look inside the process, which I can do. I understand process and see how processes work, and how important they really are. But I'd also got a skill of understanding people and helping them to change and to become better. And the reality is you can't change anyone. You can only change yourself.
Yeah.
And helping them by me changing as a department leader, by learning from them and then reflecting back into them that they can actually do it themselves and taking things forwards. So I really started, taking those things forwards and understanding that big passion of actually people are amazing.
That constraint though, when they said they got 18 months to turn you into a master, what I like about that is that there is a constraint which puts the pressure on you to get there. Because I bet if they said that it would take 2.5 years, you would have taken 2.5 years. So the fact that they got 18 months, we got this. I think whether that constraint was a purposeful thing or not, I like that. I think I'm familiar with a brand called Lexus. We Humans, which is one of the companies that I'm involved with, and we run our training days in Lexus, and they run off the thing of omotashi, which is hospitality. So everything that they do is you're coming to our house and we want to help you as much as possible. Even the fact that the presence of the Lexus sort of like showrooms, they built an extra bit in there for local businesses, which is why we're involved, because they're saying we are present in this community and we want to engage the community to work with us. So there's a lot you can learn from other cultures, and I think Lexus, when you were talking Japanese, I was like, I'm beneficiary of that experience in terms of some of their DNA, some of their principles that they carry. And then going on to the masters thing, I think they have to have 56,000 hours worth of training before they can even go on the assembly line.
Yes, there is. So my story with the Japanese carries on because I read a book called 2 Second Lean, and it changed my life. And that's probably the first time I could really say books change. I've read books. I read insatiably. For someone who's dyslexic and doesn't like reading, I hated reading at school. And my mum says the only reason I got through school O-level, back then, that's how old I am, is because I read comics. And that allowed me to learn the English language. I hated reading books. Now I love reading books. I love Audible. I love reading. I love both of those aspects of it. And I'm insatiable for knowledge and learning. So I read lots of books, and I always look for one thing in every book that I ever read. And I always try to implement one thing from every book. Again, something else I learned from another book.
But that's it, isn't it?
And so I read a book called 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers. And it's his journey of lean and how he condensed lean from this big complex thing down to very, very simple practices, which I practice and do every single day in my business. And my partner, Elaine, does them all with me as well. And that book was radical to me because it took me back to my roots of you work with people. It's not about trying to improve productivity. No, you improve yourself. You make your job easier, therefore you get the job becomes more productive. Of course. You make the job better, so the quality of the product and the output that you're doing gets better, therefore you delight your customers, therefore you can sell more. It's just so simple type thing. And that was a real aha moment, because what I realized is I'd been telling everybody what to do all my life as a coach. I'd been saying, do this, because I got the experience. I was trained by the Japanese. I went through over 50 odd businesses. I can look at processes inside out. When I took over the project management department, the first thing we did was we read the manuals and realized that 90% of everybody wasn't following the process. So we just went back to the basics and followed the process. So I'm very good at telling people what to do. But what this book taught me was actually I have to start with myself. And that changed everything. So I practice every single day my own, things we do. So we 3S every morning. My partner and I, we clean the house together because that's our gemba. That's our place of work. We continuously make small improvements. and we put them on our app. So we can share those improvements, even though we see each other all the time. Those practices and things. So it was really important that actually that book changed that whole attitude of me telling everybody to actually, I've got to do it. And only by me doing it will people be inspired to follow. And that's what we did. We ran a project in the project management department, and I ran the project, and we followed the process. Guess what? It was one of the few projects to be on time to budget.
That's it.
And so everything is there, but people don't want to do it. They want to tell everybody else. And that was the big aha moment for me, where I changed my whole attitude.
I think the terminology that I've heard is job crafting. And so basically what you do is you have a job that you're given, that you do, but left to your own devices, you craft that job for yourself and your own needs, rather than the needs of the organisation.
And the customer.
And so often then you create a job role that you're comfortable in, but not necessarily is needed for the business. And so job crafting is what we naturally do without regular check-ins, regular questions or process. Because you'll find that the process isn't being followed because I don't agree with it. For instance, if you've got a thing like a project management tool like Asana and you don't bother filling it in, it saves you 5 minutes, but nobody else knows what you're doing. So yes, I know it takes a bit of time and it's stealing away from you doing what you're doing, but then the rest of the team are blind. So then you go and win some work in and they go and stack you with it. You go, I can't do it, I'm really busy. Well, it's not on the Asana board, is it? So naturally you're free. And so you get these pinch points that are needless because you've decided to craft a job for you rather than for the organisation or for the client. So it's a common one, that one.
Yes. Absolutely. Totally seen that so many times. It's like, and I have to do that myself now. We have an internal CRM. When I make phone calls to clients or prospective clients, when I get emails that come in that I need to make some notes on and update the CRM, I have to do it. Because that's the process. That's the agreed process that my partner and I have agreed. This is what I will do. And I have to do it. But there are times when I go, I forgot to do that. But I will go back and do it because I've learned over time the importance of doing that. And that's probably what happens with a lot of people. They don't see the importance over time for those things happening.
And I think where we found that more prevalent for us as a creative agency, for example, is that because we work remote now and the team is remote, it's like it's even more important. You might be able to hide in an office and then someone walks up to you and goes, hey, what's going on? But it's more important that we meet every day at 9:09, we call it, and then we discuss what's going on the previous day and what you're going to be doing today. And that seems, that's a lot of meetings. Well, it's not really, because in the office, you're probably walking around and you just ask them casually, right? Over a cup of tea, what you're doing. Well, we can't do that anymore. So we have to have these extra meetings to understand what everyone's doing. And they don't have to be long. And then the same thing with projects. What we found is that we have short, sharp meetings, but we have the same time every week. So even if it's a 10-minute meeting, it's a 10-minute meeting. Yes, are scheduled. Yes, they got dates in, but just having that once a week checkpoint with a client of let's say a large web build or a brand build, just helps everyone go, oh, progress is being made. So those things in terms of communication can help massively. But it goes back to what you're saying. It's about people and everyone working together. It's not about person and it's not about I. It's about all. And we all need to know what everybody's doing in order to do what we're supposed to do.
And the reality is, in every single process in life, not just at work, but every single process, getting up in the morning, making food, sorting out the podcast, setting up the filming of the podcast, every process, whether you're process or method, there's going to be a problem. Something will not quite work. Something has subtly changed. Even things wear out. And the reality is that you have to build that capability of process first, and then the skill. This is the real thing of problem solving in people. And if people can have a process and lots of problem solving skills, wow, the world is your oyster. That's what Toyota did. That's what Lean came from. That's why Lexus are so good on the quality and the level they do. They are relentless, focusing on why have we got the skills inside the team to solve the problems that will happen every single day in our process, and fix it with one aspect of, can I make it better for the client? And that's the real power of sort of inspiring people. And that's why I love coaching people, I've you and I talked about in my podcast at the end, I was a swim coach for performance kids. I've been a football coach. I don't do football.
But you're working with people, right?
Absolutely. I don't do football. I never have done. My brother did football. I didn't. But coaching people, coaching kids, coaching people, when they excel and deliver something off their own because you've nurtured them in a certain way, it's just inspiring.
It's an interesting one because we talk about Lexus. Go back to them. They're getting some plugs today. I know there are quite a few people there, but the production line, 1 in 10, they put a fault in a car. They deliberately put a fault in a car. They don't tell the assembly line, but 1 in 10 cars have a fault, and they get told they have to find the fault.
Wow.
So I don't think they even tell them what number of the 10, but there is one in every 10. So it could be 3 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. And to date, it's always been found, the fault in the car. That's the level of training that they've had.
Yeah.
So I liken it this way, someone goes, well, if I want to try and find a fake banknote, I know we deal with digital now, but a fake banknote, you don't learn how to find a fake banknote by studying all the fake banknotes. You learn by studying the original and know it implicitly. So then when you see the fake, you can spot it a mile off. And that's exactly the philosophy behind them, is that they've educated them what is good. And our mentality is, so when I tell that story, some people go, well, why are they doing that? That's catching them out. And it's not. If you understand the baseline principle is to improve them and keep them sharp, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's funny, the mindsets between the two. Some will say, all right, we'll rise to the challenge. We're never going to get cut out. And other people are going, well, they're just tricking us. Because ultimately, those people are somewhere on the line looking for that shortcut.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is, we can't afford shortcuts, not for our product.
Yeah.
And then when you understand where they fit on the sort of the luxury car market level, they've got to be exceptional to get up and above the more established German brands that have been out there for 40, 50, 60 years, So when they put that time and effort in, it plays a much bigger story and a much bigger picture to where they want to head.
Yeah.
But you need to do those little things in order to grow the reputation of your brand.
Yeah, so. Definitely.
So you coach people, you're coaching people and you've got a background of working with them. What are the sort of like the major challenges that you find with businesses that you come across coaching? What are they struggling with nowadays, would you say? Is it, things like AI, or is it getting left behind, or is it transition? What sort of problems do you often find out?
Well, I track all the conversations I have with my clients, and we have different types of, we have one-on-one coaching and we have group board coaching. And 60%, 70% are always about people, even now. So regardless of what's going on, people are the most important thing. And encouraging people, and and so that's what I do a lot of my work with some of my clients, really thinking about their people. I once read a book, apologies, I can't remember who the book it was now, but he talked about getting rid of the mill owner in us, that whipping people with the dark satanic mills. I just thought, wow, that's such an analogy, because I know so many managers that are just like that. And it's that type of mentality when you're just starting to take on your third, fourth or fifth staff member, and people are not quite sure they're doing what I want them to do. And you can backpedal quite easily, because it's naturally in us to doubt and to worry about what people are doing and are they earning their money. So having a lot of conversations around building the purpose of the business, building the values. Are you living up to the values in your business? Thinking about the processes that you've built to help them to succeed. Have they improved those processes themselves? What's the conversation tone that you're having with these people? Are you a positive tone? Are you a negative tone? How are you feeling to be able to coach somebody to excel? These are the type of conversations that I keep coming back to time and time again, because it's all about people.
Well, the thing is, when you put it back to people, it's the responsibility on the person leading them. And I think that's what people don't want to hear. They want to hear it's a thing that they can fix. So, I'll buy them another computer that solves that problem, or I'll give them more time to do this. It's almost like I want to solve the problem without an interaction with me personally. And in fact, often that can be the very thing that fixes the problem if you're clearer in your instruction or clearer in your expectations. I saw a meme picture the other day, and it's a guy sat on the rocks staring out to sort of like the river. and it just says, I was a people person until I started working with people.
Absolutely, yeah. And everybody's different. Everybody's different.
And it's funny because we've been watching Clarkson's Farm,
right?
And me and my youngest and that, and the sheep. And the sheep just going absolutely everywhere. He said we get them all, we put them in a pen, and then they climb in and running around. And often that's like people, right? They just do whatever they want. And he just commentates on why are you going to the loo there? It's just like sometimes it's just completely illogical where people's behaviours are. But as you said, the way you fix that is work on yourself first.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If you can inspire and help people to see. And see what good is like and what perfect is like you're trying to achieve to get to, what you're trying to do. And those are the guardrails that you build in the business. Small businesses are, we talk about values. My partner and I, Elaine, we sat down, and before we even created the business, even chose to do BizSmart Gloucestershire, we wrote our business values down. Yeah. Because we needed to see how we would be worked together and what we would do. And they have adjusted over the last 3.5 years of working together, and we've tweaked them, etc. But those are part of the guardrails, and our values then turn into our behaviours and how we do things, how it's done here, what we live up to. So we put those in place right at the beginning. So it's helping my clients understand that, because sometimes, especially if you come from a corporate world, values are things that are on the wall. With funny pictures, Well,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like, or you get a value set that's on a very long word, and people can't remember number 8, 9, and 10. And then for me, values are behaviours that you can measure against, you can hire against, you can reward against, you can discipline against, you can recruit against. And I think with my experience is that often, where I haven't got the recruitment bang on, it's often a values problem. Yeah. I've somewhere along the line picked something up but just glossed over it. And then it's got worse, and then you're like, okay, this is where the problem is. It's because I've compromised in a particular area. And I think values, once you've got them down, and yes, they can shape and mold, but once you get them down, don't compromise on those. No. Once you've got them, there is a time where you've just seen if they work or they don't work for you. But once you've got them, I think you'll find, like you said, a lot of your problems are people. Also, I would say a lot of your problems is values, where you've either adhered to them or veered from them. Yeah. And I think, and if you can bring yourself back to them, it's a values decision, and reinforce that. It fixes everything else, because you can talk mission, you can talk vision, you can talk the wonderful things, why we're here, how we want to get there, all that amazing stuff. But values will derail that completely if you don't get them right. Yeah. So for me, values is a really, really important thing. So you talk about people. Are there, when you talk about people, do you find it's skills problems or personality problems?
Oh, what a great question. I would say it's a mixture of both. Mm-hmm. Okay. Skills are things that you can learn. Yeah. Where attitude, if you have the right attitude, you can go in any type of activity that you want to do and achieve. So when it starts with the business owner, they are the center of all the values. That's where the small businesses start from. Yeah, and getting those right and articulated so people can understand that, it's a great start. And then when you're hiring people, if they can't live up to those values, then maybe you've hired the wrong people. But then actually skills are just something you learn. Yeah. And within the lean world, we have this whole approach to skill development and how you do it, and it's just so simple. You're talking about Lexus, get that plug in again, shall we? And their training. Their training is relentless because it's so important. But actually, they're training for skill as well as attitude. Yeah. And then you can have that, and then people grow and do. Myself, I've gone through my life's journey. I've learned new skill after new skill after new skill. Skills are something you can always learn. I'm learning videography at the moment and how to make adverts, and I'm teaching myself how to do that and learning. Anything can be learned, but actually at your core, who are you? What's your values? What do you define as yourself? That doesn't really change massively. It evolves over life. Yeah, absolutely, but it doesn't change from day to day. Where I can dramatically change my skill set by spending 2 or 3 hours learning something and build even better videos, and that's the capability that we have, where people think that you need to hire for skill and then bring in hope the attitude comes. Actually, I think it's the other way around if you really get it right.
Yeah, I think I've very much been along that, because the DNA of the business that we're in originally started in the charity to some degree, that we had this process of recruitment, which is volunteer, freelance, and then recruit full time. So the volunteer aspect began to say, are they the right values fit? Because that's all you got to offer is values. And, if you're volunteering, that already says something about you as a person. But, you'll see a different change in behavior if you go from volunteering to freelance.
Yeah.
Is that same heart there, or have you become more mercenary? And for me, that journey then from being brilliant in terms of as a freelancer, where, oh my gosh, we can't live without this person, and you take them on, that journey does protect, and I think even now we're out the charity, which we came out in 2016 and started again, so to speak, that still flows through the company. That most of the team have always worked with somebody else. They've trained someone else up. So like George is our creative director, who I trained, and George has now trained Jacob, and Jacob, is now training another. So there's this thing of helping one another get on. So it's not always about you, it's about someone else. So how can you replicate yourself in someone else? And ultimately, it's not with the thing of that you might leave, that the business grows to give you space to grow as well.
Yeah.
And that's been great for us. And I think where it's always worked is that, to some degree, that DNA is of volunteering around values. That values piece starts there. The freelance stuff is where you've got the skills that we can pay for because you're delivering on video editing or whatever, and then it's like, we can't live without you. Now here's a full-time job, and it comes with those benefits of pensions and the 4-day work week that we run and all those other wonderful things.
Yeah.
And that's where you're aligned. Now, some people might say, hey, I just want to remain a contractor forever, which is fine. That's their journey. But there might be a time or a season where that thing runs out because it just doesn't fit where we want to go. We need someone embedded. And I'm very mindful as an entrepreneur that, I want to help other people fulfill their purpose in the organization and give them room. But then again, not every purpose-driven person is going to be running their own business. They might work for someone else, and that's fine as well. And I think we get it wrong sometimes. We think the only purpose-led people are the entrepreneurs, and everyone else has somehow got to work for you. And I'm saying, well, look at Jurgen Klopp for Liverpool. When he was there, he was working for someone else. His purpose, if you like, was educating people how to play a better game and entertaining the crowd, so to speak, and teaching them life skills and become better humans. But the point of it is, he was working for someone else. And I think so for me, it's, if you don't lose sight of people and you educate people, then even though they might not have the skill, you have the propensity, from a value set, certainly I do, to give them the opportunity. And we can train those skills. They can turn it into a career. And that's what's happened. Like George, who's our creative director, he was, I think he'd just done A-levels, and he was thinking about going into college, going beyond that to university, spent a year in his bedroom, just applying for different jobs, trying to get an apprentice or whatever. And I got a message one day, said, look, I know this guy, would you give him a chance? Just give him a week's work experience or whatever and see what you think. And basically, however many years on now, he's still with us.
Yeah.
And did he have the skills? He had the talent, but he didn't have all the skills. Now he's got all the skills and the talent, and managed to replicate that in someone else. So I'm very much of the thing of find the person that aligns to the values, and they will find the skill.
Yeah.
You can educate that.
Yeah.
100%. So, Granger, in terms of we talked about the common challenges that you do find in business with your individuals, and was it personality or is it the skills base? With the areas of personality, do you do any work around that? And then do you do any work around the business personality? Because the business sort of takes on its own form, doesn't it? And sometimes of the owner, and sometimes if the owner's gone away, there's something left behind.
Yeah. We use disc profiling as our main tool,
right?
For understanding and understanding yourself and understanding others and how you interact within the business. So that's the tool that we mainly use. There's also you were talking about other challenges that you have. So we call it the core purpose. What's the core of the business? Why did it create? What's the structure? Because when you're making decisions, because we have to make decisions, because we talked about constraints. Everybody's constrained. We're constrained by time and we're constrained by money, full stop, and some have more than others. But even when you've got lots of money, I've worked in corporate, you're still restricted by the budget. You can't do anything you want. Everybody's restricted. We all have constraints. Yeah. So how do you make a decision on A, B, or C? What are you going to do? So it's important in the business, so that's why we work with our clients to really initially understand what's your core purpose, what are you about, what are your values, what's your long-term game, what are you trying to achieve as a business. Now those may change over time, but it allows you to actually then, okay, I'm looking at A, B and C, do they reflect back to our core purpose? Do they reflect within our values? Are they good in terms of the overall direction that we're trying to do? And that's the first set of questions you ask yourself around when you're trying to make decisions of what to do next within your business. So it is really important to have those elements built.
Yeah, because I think for me, that the business taking on the personality will go from that startup mentality where, you everybody doesn't know, every day's different or whatever, but there comes that point of where, we talk about team building, forming, storming, norming, and performing. So that you go from that forming phase. Then there's a lot of storming because now there's growing pains. And the growing pains for me is, the equipment that you first launched with ain't good enough for where you want to take it next. And now they need more investment that you weren't planning to spend. We found it with the podcast. We've been working on a podcast for 140 plus episodes, and then the arms start going tired. So these are new arms, we had to invest in those. Otherwise this mic's going to break. So whenever you want to go to the next level, there's tweaks. And I think for me, in a business, the business journey's personality is understanding that people need to grow as well to stay the journey.
And the business owner has to change as well. So we talk about the scale up journey and the different pillars that you come across. And each pillar, you have to make a big decision because that decision is changing you. So you start off as the doer. Then you start off as the person within the team doing things and leading the team. But then you cannot go beyond that point of about 7 people without starting to really compromise. And now you need to bring someone else in to be 2 leaders. So when you get up to the 8 to 12 level, you need 2 leaders. One's you and somebody else. But how do you get the revenue for that, etc.? And then when you get to the next level, which is the sort of 20, 8 to 18 level, you need 3 leaders. Now you need 4 leaders. But how do you develop those leaders? Well, you could bring them external people into your business, and that is one way. That's going to cost you. Actually, the best way is to develop yourself to coach others in your business to become the leaders in the business, and then you can really accelerate and grow because you're keeping the culture there, you're keeping the values there, rather than bringing in outside influence that can totally stir up the pot. Now, they're both right ways of doing it, but what's your values and your core purpose in your business to help you make those decisions when you have to make those step changes as your business is growing and scaling?
I think it's very much like, I use this example in telling stories. So when we're creating a brand, you do a thing called like the Hollywood narrative, which is essentially there's a character, there's a goal that character has, and then there's an adversary, and then there's the sort of like the plans that they've done, and then there's the attempts and failures. Now, if you watch any one movie, about an hour and a half, it collapses. It's an all is lost moment. I've ruined every movie for our kids. We sit there and we all look at each other, all is lost moment. And then we're watching for the next 30 minutes of it solving itself. But the key thing is that there's often that wise sage, there's often that Obi-Wan Kenobi character, Mr. Miyagi character. And I think in your career as a leader, there is a point where you are no longer the hero.
Yes.
And I think for your business to grow, that's what needs to happen, And so if your skill was, let's say, a graphic designer and everyone's patting you on the back going, great logo, great campaign, blah, 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 and you still draw value from that, it's like you've got to stop because the business will only go as far as you. You have to go, when somebody else has created the logo and done the campaign, and someone else is congratulating them on what a great job. Now you congratulate yourself.
Yes.
Are you ready to be that person?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's something that I had to learn, that it was, I even when I was the most, like when you get stressed in business, because the stress is right, you find yourself going back to the easy bit because you can do that.
Yeah.
Why are you bugging the creative director coming up with another concept? Shouldn't you be like getting some more work in? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And sometimes we have that habit as a business owner to go back to what we know, that we feel comfortable with. But the point is, in order to grow the business, you're the one who's made the decision to be uncomfortable for the rest of your life.
Yes. No, that's very true. I mean, we have, one of our values is trusted ownership.
Yeah.
So we have to trust each other to get on with our jobs, that is growing the business and making it happen. It's very easy to go, oh, I don't quite think that landing page works out. Oh, I didn't think that sales conversation worked really well. It's very easy to park your tank on someone else's lawn because you have some knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're not living the day to day. What words am I going to put there? How am I going to think? I haven't gone through the 8 hours of thinking that she's gone through to create those words.
Yeah.
She hasn't gone through the 44 hours worth of video watching I've done to change 4 or 5% of the sales conversation. You got to have to be very careful about that, as a leader all the time. But actually, you're totally right. You have chosen to grow the business. Therefore, you have got to be the most uncomfortable person all the time because you are learning more skills ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And one of those biggest ones is the changes that you have to make in yourself. When you change that leadership role from the doer to the manager to then the leader in the business, and that's about coaching and developing, which is hard when you've never maybe done it before because you've always been the person in the thick of it all.
Yeah, and I think the other key thing is, and this is what I learned. So, a friend of mine who's co-founder of one of the companies that I'm involved with, Humans, he said to me, "Are you a business owner or an entrepreneur?" And that like hit me with a brick because I realized I was trying to be an entrepreneur in a business owner's role. So the business was maturing and it needed more process and needed more this, that, and the other. What it didn't need is constant pivoting or constant changing.
Yeah.
And what I realized is there were things in our business that had come into the business that actually were a pivot. And rightly or wrongly, that's great. But actually the pivot now should be a company. And so when I answered the question, I realized I was an entrepreneur. One of the things that we did is we took the software aspect out of the core business. So we're a brand marketing agency, we're building websites, and then naturally everyone's going, hey, can you develop this? Or can you build an app? And you're like, yeah, we can. Right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, what are you? Are you a brand marketing agency or are you a software company? And I realized they were becoming diametrically opposite.
Yeah.
It made sense then to pull it out. But what it did for me was then, there's another field to go, Mr. Entrepreneur. And I could leave this to really double down and drill down on the processes.
Yeah.
I've done the hard graft. We've got a process. Just follow that and we'll deliver every single time. And now I had this as a leader. Now I've got another interest, which is a software company. And I think often for leaders or business owners, they're so focused on the one thing that actually what they need to do is maybe start something else.
Possibly. I mean, I always go back to Tony Robbins, and he said, the richest woman in America, she's a roofer, and she's been in roofing for 60 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's what I meant by okay. Let me retract.
It depends on what you want as an outcome in your long-term journey and what you're after.
Yeah, let me reverse then. Let me reverse the understanding of that. Is if you were in an brand agency, don't mess around with the core product. Start something else within the core product. So, for example, podcast.
Yeah.
So, podcast, we hadn't done a podcast. Yeah. So it was like in the business now, I recognize the value add because the industry's needing it. But I'm involved in that, not building brands.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you could be a roofer, but for instance, the roofer, rather that business owner is not building the roofs that they've always built, is maybe exploring new sustainable technology.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you'll do,
start another business.
Exactly. What we'll do will change and evolve within the core of what
But that's where you need to live, in the change and evolving of it, not the other stuff.
But one of the things, though, that can happen with entrepreneurs, and I see it a lot, and and we have to challenge ourselves in our own business around this, is that when it gets tough, it's getting tough because you haven't worked out the next problem. But actually, that's the real focus that you now need to do. But what a lot of us do, and we've done it, and we have to be careful about it, is we'll actually go, I'm going to go over and do this instead because it's a bit easier because I'm starting anew. So you're going back down the mountain, finding a new path, and you'll get to the same point and you'll get tough again. Yeah. Everything you do in business gets tough. Yeah, 100%. It really does. And it's whether entrepreneurs have a tendency then to go and find a new shiny thing rather than overcome it. So the business owners, that's the moment in time, then the way that I would interpret that is the business owner is the person that can push through that toughness and get to the solution and find the marketing that works, or the sales process that works, or the product that works, or the right people in your business that work. You get through that tough time, you find the solution, you get there, and when that's working, yes, absolutely, you could still be an entrepreneur and go somewhere else, but actually what's the next level that you want to get to? And what
exactly that. And I think for me that's it. It's making a concerted decision to push things forward, not a distraction. Because I think something, starting another business from scratch is a lot of work, right? And can become a distraction. And I think what I've done is I've scratched the itch by doing what's best for the business. So we spun something out, which is a software from the original company. But I try not to be involved in the. I'm still involved from the strategic perspective. So we were a new client and where we headed and whatever. So strategically, I can work with them. But don't ask me what color the email signature needs to be. I'm not interested. And as long as it fits the brand that's been created, then I'm all right with it. I think what I found is that if I am working within creation now, it's more pioneering the other aspects that will enrich our offering, which is why we're doing podcasts. So now, since doing podcasts, we originally did it to inspire people for purpose, which we are, and we continue to do. But as a result of that, we've won podcast clients as well. Like the team after this are packing down and they're off to London to film a podcast in a studio there on behalf of one of our clients.
Brilliant.
Which is great, but that product didn't exist. And that's what I spend my time in, is creating the extra products that are naturally going to increase the offering to make our clients better, and so they're more of an authority in the marketplace. But that said, I think sometimes the business owner, if they stay in that position long enough, they might start breaking stuff. Because ultimately they get bored. And that's not the right. Don't break it. Evolve it, mature it. A pioneer within it, go in a slightly different direction. But let's not keep breaking stuff when it doesn't need to be broken because you're bored.
I mean, as I was just explaining, we've made that same mistake, idea, opportunity, whatever it is, in terms of how we brand it. But we've got a product which is a 90-day planning system. It's got software that becomes your accountability partner. It drives the team. It helps them decide where we're going to do. We work on your business, not just in it. We've built the science of achievement. It's a brilliant product. Really, really works. It's one of the reasons I bought the franchise. That's why I'm here and why I'm doing it. My partner, when she first did it, she went, "Oh my God, everybody should be doing this. It's just so good." We follow it every 90 days. We run it and we do it ourselves. We're growing and developing from that. We had this idea, Kevin, who's the owner, and myself, let's spin it out into a separate business so we could build it up and sell it differently, etc. Doing that. Fantastic, brilliant idea. Same product across both companies, 2 different companies doing it, everything else. Didn't even think about, now we've doubled our marketing activity, doubling the number of advertising we need to do, doubling everything we need to. And we're still a young, BizSmart Gloucestershire, we're still fairly young at doing these sort of things, learning marketing and things ourselves, and suddenly we're doing twice as much activity content and everything else. Now, what we've done is we've applied our lean thinking to it, and we've simplified all our processes and we've changed things and we're rationalizing things, and we've now got it to the point we can run 2 businesses out of one set of working days, where before it was crazy. But it's sometimes it feels right. And it felt absolutely right, but we didn't think of all of the on-term consequences of doing those sort of things. So sometimes that's what I mean. It feels perfectly right, but actually was it in our core purpose? And going back, if we'd read our core purpose and really understand our core purpose, maybe actually we wouldn't have made that decision.
Well, I think the classic example in brand is where a company has an idea and then they start another website. So they go and buy another URL, then they put a new website in, and then they spin some of their service into another. And I'm like going, so who's your audience? Well, I don't know. I was like, well, why'd you buy another website for? And so what about the social media? Oh, yeah, we've got to create all those channels.
Yeah.
I said, no. This isn't a new business. This is another service that you're offering. And unless it is removed where people are getting confused of what you are, keep it within the core business. Because Google inherently rewards traffic on a website. So if you've added another product, keep it on the website because it's attracting more traffic to your site rather than like keep spinning it off. So you'll find like, I think it was like we were working with an art gallery that they had the art gallery where you could buy paintings and they had art investment and they wanted a separate website for that. And I said, well, no, it's the same thing. Put art investment on there. So the people that are on there looking to buy art, they really want to be serious about it rather than just hang it on the wall. They might contact art investment. So we merged the two sites that they had created. And so in that instance, we had the two sites that they paid us to do, but we told them don't do one, and then they arrived at the same conclusion. It was good for us because we had to redo the site again and they paid us more. But the bottom line is sometimes when you're in it, you can see this, that sometimes the products are absolutely related and it makes sense, and then other times my audience for software is very different from my audience from brand.
Absolutely.
But sometimes one might need the other because they might need users. So let's advertise the user with a nice brand campaign to attract the users, and vice versa. The existing company needs something that makes things smarter, and so an app might make sense. So it's again, it's like for me, what shifted me is I have an entrepreneurial itch, but I didn't want to keep breaking the business or innovate for innovate's sake because I'm bored. It had to make sense. It had to create more impact and influence for our existing client if we were going to go, so podcast being one, for example. But, I'm not going to be selling them apps because they don't need them. Now if they come to me and they want a much more techie solution for a thing, then obviously I will refer them to that company. And creation not involved, so
And you're talking about marketing. I mean, I said earlier on, there are two big moments of my life that completely stretched me. One was when I met the Japanese and did my training. The other is now. And the reason being is, we have discovered that sales and marketing is the one thing that drives small businesses. You can have amazing products and everything else, and we do have amazing products, but if you don't get it out there and everything else, and so we are consuming ourselves with everything with marketing. Now, we could outsource that, but actually, if you outsource it too early, you're going to abdicate that responsibility of knowing and understanding. How would you guide the person that you outsource? Or even if they're the best agency in the world, they still need to understand you. And if you don't understand yourself, so we are, my partner Elaine's learning everything she can on marketing and digital marketing activities. I'm learning about advertising and sales processes, and we're massively stretched. There were some days when we're both exhausted for the amount of learning, but it's not exhausted because we're physically tired. It's mentally our level of thinking outside the box and what we're doing, what we're learning. And I think, that's the other part of what I love about being an entrepreneur is those passions, but you just have to make sure the passions are focused on what's going to help the business grow and do things.
Marketing for me, marketing is something that obviously when tough times come, people then say, hey, we'll cut it out. We'll just live without it. But, for me, marketing is not just spending money on Facebook advertising, LinkedIn posts or whatever. I think the corest essence of marketing for me is just networking. Get out from behind your desk and go and speak to strangers every day.
Oh, I totally agree.
And you
have to learn about yourself, and you learn about your product, and you learn about how you put things across. It's the best thing since sliced bread.
But the point is, because you are in an environment where you talk to strangers, you're pitching all the time. And I think for me, that's ultimately that you're also understanding what it makes to sell, because that's what you're actually doing. Eventually, you're probably doing both marketing and sales. But the marketing aspect of things, of networking, is one conversation could change your life.
You've mentioned that on my podcast.
Exactly. And because of one conversation can change your life, that keep doing that while you're doing all the other marketing activities that support your authority. And the more you do those other marketing activities, the more you turn up in other rooms, the more it gets recognised.
Yeah.
And I use this example since we've been doing the podcast. When I go into a networking room, no one's talking about brand marketing to me. They're always talking about the podcast. And that's out of the podcast, they then want to get onto other, well, there was this being talked about this, and you mentioned this. And then all of a sudden the conversation's a natural one. Rather than how many times do you go to a networking meeting and go, hey, I need a brand new website. You don't. It's like, well, let's get people thinking a little bit differently about marketing. And marketing is about, for me, about authority. And the more you do podcasts, the more you put content out there, the more you engage with, strangers, the more you're building your authority.
Yeah.
And if they lift under the hood, they find all this amazing stuff that you do. And that's ultimately, you're just telling a story of the impact that you're making for other people.
Yeah.
That's it. That's marketing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So Granger, how would people be able to get in touch with you if they, they've liked what they heard, you've heard your sort of like, your story and where you're going on, where you wanted to take things. But, how would they reach out? Is it website, LinkedIn? What's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn. I'm Granger Forson on LinkedIn, the only Granger Forson out there.
The one and only.
The one and only.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for my parents for giving that a wonderful name. Also got a website which is BizSmart-Gloucestershire. Come and find us there. There's a link to book a meeting or anything with me, and just reach out and say hi. I love conversations. You've been on my podcast. I'm now on yours. I love conversation. I love finding out things. Because I'm always exploring things. So every conversation about a business, where you are, what you're trying to do. Love to have a conversation, give you some value. And see where it goes from there. And that's what life's about.
So lastly, before we just sign off, because now we know where to get, what's the future hold?
Well, we both sat down a number of years ago and decided we didn't want to work for anybody anymore. So we're going to build our own business, at the age of, 53 doing that. I'm 56 now. Okay. Maybe it wasn't the right decision. Money
Time
isn't quite as good as it was supposed to be by now, but it's coming and it's growing. And we're having, the main thing is we're just having so much fun. It's just great. We have ups and down days, but it's just fun. So this is the business. This is what we're building. I want to work with about sort of 24 clients in total. Over the next 10 years, helping them grow. Some will come, some will go through doing that. On the side, we're building Smart 90, the product, which is a software related activity that businesses pick up and run and do more successful. If that business gets to where we want, we'll sell it in 5 years' time, maybe. Who knows? That's the unicorn or something. But that's really what we're about. We're about just sort of enjoying life by building our own business and really challenging ourselves in the last sort of 10 years of our working life, really. So,
but what I like about that is that you're not only building a business. Well, you're not only helping other businesses, but you're doing the same. So you're on the same journey as the people that you're working with. And I think that helps a lot of people as well.
And that's one of our principles. We have our values, our 6 values, and we also have 22 principles. And one of our principles is practice what we preach.
There you go.
If I'm not doing it and we're not doing it, how can I help other people to see? So.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Time has flown by. I just glanced at the clock thinking, wow, time flew. But it's been really good. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll definitely have you back.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.